A phone number gets all the worry when people build accounts because the SMS step is the one that blocks you at the door. But the email behind an account is the quieter thread and the more permanent one. You spin up 10 accounts, each needs an inbox, so you reach for the fastest thing you have, your own everyday address as the recovery on all of them, or 10 fresh ones made back to back in one browser, or a single domain where every address you invent lands in the same pile. Every one of those is a rope tying the accounts together. Today is the email layer, the most permanent identifier an account owns, and how the addresses behind your identities quietly link them unless you build them not to. Why I watch the email layer? I run proxy and cloud phone farms and manage a lot of separate accounts, and the ones that link through email are the ones people never suspect, because the email looked like a throwaway they forgot the moment the sign-up went through. But a platform does not forget it. The recovery address you attached in 30 seconds is the most durable thing about that account. The one value that survives every password change and device swap you will ever make. I treat it as infrastructure because it outlives almost everything else. Exposta info, inan mai van de posamin. To you, the email is a login and the place password resets land. To the platform, it is an identity anchor stronger than the login itself. It survives a changed password, a new device, a rotated proxy underneath. It is precisely the thread a platform reaches for to recognize a returning user, the same role a phone number plays, because it is the one identifier a real person keeps for years while everything around it changes. Link two accounts by email and you have joined them at the most permanent layer there is. The lazy patterns that link everything. Most email linking is self-inflicted and it comes from a handful of shortcuts. One everyday address set as the recovery on every account, so a single value sits under the whole fleet. 10 fresh inboxes created one after another in the same session, born from the same footprint. Plus addressing, where you turn one inbox into a name plus a tag and pretend the tags are separate people. Each feels clever in the moment, and each is a bridge drawn by your own hand between accounts you meant to keep apart. Plus addressing and dots do not separate anything. The plus trick deserves its own warning because it is so common. A big provider treats a name plus anything as the same inbox as the plain name and treats the dotted spelling of a name as that same inbox too. Handy for you, one place to read everything, but it means those addresses are not separate identities to anyone who normalizes them, and platforms normalize them routinely. A fleet built on plus tags and dotted spellings is not 10 identities. It is one inbox wearing 10 labels, and the label comes off the instant someone strips the tag. Creating them in a row is its own talent. Even 10 genuinely distinct inboxes can arrive already linked if you make them wrong. 10 new accounts on a free provider, created back-to-back from one IP, in one browser, verified against one recovery number, are joined before they ever touch the platform. The provider watched them all be born in the same place within the same hour, and that birth record is a footprint they carry afterward. The addresses are different strings, but the story of how they came to exist is one story. The recovery chain is a graph you forgot to check. Here is the layer people miss entirely. Every email account has its own recovery details, its own backup address, and its own recovery phone, and those form a second graph underneath the first. If the inbox behind account A recovers to the same phone as the inbox behind account B, the two accounts are joined one level down, where you stopped looking because the visible addresses differed. The accounts look separate, the emails look separate, and underneath they both hang off one recovery number. A clean fleet has to be clean all the way down, not just on the surface. Catch-all domains, the operator favorite. The two most serious operators reach for is a catch-all domain. You buy a domain, switch on catch-all, and any address you invent at it works instantly. An endless supply of fresh-looking inboxes with no separate sign-up for each. It is genuinely powerful and I use it myself, but it carries a specific risk. Every one of those infinite addresses shares one thing, the domain after the @ sign, and the domain is a fingerprint in its own right. The shared domain becomes the link. If every account you own has an email ending in one obscure domain you registered last month, that domain is the thread that ties the whole fleet together. Its age, its registration record, its mail configuration, its reputation, all of it is one shared value sitting under every account. Burn one account and the domain it pointed at is now a known quantity attached to all the others. The fix is not to abandon catch-all domains, it is to spread across several, let them age, and never let one just registered domain carry your entire operation. Free provider versus your own domain. So you are choosing between two imperfect options, and it helps to see the trade honestly. A big free provider carries high default trust, but making many cleanly is hard. Each is phone-gated, and they link easily by the footprint of how they were made. Your own domain scales without limit, and you control every address, but it starts with lower default trust and carries that shared domain risk. Neither is a free win. The answer is usually a mix. Trusted free accounts for the identities that matter most, and domains for the volume, rather than betting everything on one. An inbox that has only ever received a single sign-up confirmation looks exactly like what it is. A container made minutes ago to pass one gate. A real person's email has a past, newsletters and receipts, and sent messages and logins spread over months. An address with no history is a weak anchor, and a platform that can see the age and shape of the email you signed up with reads that emptiness. The same warm-up logic that applies to the account applies a layer below it to the inbox itself. The provider is a trust signal by itself. Platforms weight the domain your email sits on before your account does anything at all. A well-known provider or an established custom domain reads as ordinary, while a domain famous for disposable throwaway addresses reads as a flag on arrival. An account can be filtered on sign-up purely because the address it registered with came from a provider the platform has learned to distrust. That is the trap in temporary mail. The sites that hand you a working inbox for a minute with no sign-up, because providers keep lists of those disposable domains and flag them on site. It is a fine door for something you plan to throw away, and a terrible foundation for anything you plan to grow. Isolation runs all the way to the email. The rule this whole channel keeps coming back to holds here too. One identity, one email, and that email's own recovery details unique to it as well. No shared recovery phone behind 5 different inboxes. No one backup address quietly listed under a dozen accounts. The moment two identities share anything at the email layer, recovery included, they are no longer two identities. They are one operation with two faces, and that shared value is the seam a platform pulls on. The email lives behind the same wall as the account. An email is not separate infrastructure from the account it serves. It is part of the same identity. So it lives behind the same wall. Create the inbox and read it through the same proxy and profile the account itself uses. An email made and checked from your real home connection, then attached to an account that browses from a proxy on another continent. Splits the identity down the middle. Matched, they describe one person. Split, they describe a setup. Circumstances where clean emails get relinked. This is the quiet one that undoes careful work. You can create 10 inboxes perfectly, each on its own network, each warmed, then reunite everyone by logging into all of them from one dashboard, in one browser, on one IP. Because reading your mail in one place is convenient. The email is only ever as isolated as the sessions that touch it. An address created behind a wall and then read from your living room every morning has handed back the separation you paid for. Access counts every bit as much as creations. Keep the email ledger. None of this survives without records. So keep an email ledger beside your account records. Which address belongs to which identity, which provider or domain it sits on, its own recovery chain when it was created. It feels like bookkeeping for something you would rather forget, which is exactly why almost nobody keeps it and exactly why they relink themselves months later. The ledger is what lets you retire an account's email along with the account and check a new identity's address against the graveyard before you put it into service. The burned email is the worst thing to recycle. Reusing the email from a banned account on a fresh one is the same recycling mistake as reusing a burned proxy. Only worse, because the email is the strongest recognition key an account has. The platform remembers that exact address as one that carried an account it removed, so a new account wearing it does not merely risk a link, it inherits the grave directly. A dead account's email retires into the ledger with the account and never comes back out to sit under something you care about keeping. Done. What a clean email layer actually looks like. Put it together and the shape is not exotic. a spread across a few aged domains and a handful of genuinely trusted free accounts, each address unique to one identity, each with its own recovery chain, each given a little history before it carries anything real, each created and read only through its own identity's proxy and profile, every one written down. It is a handful of habits, not a product you buy. The money and minutes it costs are small next to the price of a whole fleet that shares one thread and falls together the moment that thread is pulled. The honest limit applies here as it does to every layer on this channel. A clean email foundation does not make an account safe. It removes one of the strongest links a platform has to connect your accounts to each other. It is one input into a risk score that still weighs the network, the behavior, and the fingerprint, and anyone promising more than that is selling you something. What you get is real and worth having. A fleet whose accounts no longer share a permanent thread at the identity layer, so the email stops being the quiet reason they all go down together. I build my own fleet exactly this way. An email layer planned as deliberately as the proxies, with a ledger that keeps a dead account's address from ever reaching back to touch a live one. The full guides and tested picks are at multi-account ops. Come, including the email checklist I actually use, the way I age and spread domains, and honest write-ups of the tools I pair with this. No affiliate guesswork. If you have been treating the email as a throwaway you set once and forgot, this is the layer to fix first. Subscribe for more honest, tested multi-account ops. Next time, running a clean handoff when someone else has to take over your accounts without their shortcuts linking everything you spent months keeping apart.